Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I've returned to the Rose Garden at the Hamilton Gardens. I came up with a topic last night that fits in completely with this setting, so I've come back. Just before I get into discussing today's topic, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the symbolism and things that have just come to me this morning. So I'm sitting amongst the roses, so the red rose behind me, which is one of the very few rose bushes that are still blooming here. There are some others, but noticeably as I walked into the rose garden today, when I smelt the air, I distinctly could smell the roses. And I mention that because in my life, my sense of smell has probably always been my least receptive or least developed, I feel. And I always mentioned in my life that when people said, "Oh, can you smell that?" I used to say, "Well, no, I can't." But these days, and particularly today, it was very distinct that I could get a strong smell of the roses. So again, talking about that sensitivity of my being, I totally believe that everything I've done that has led me to where I am today has enhanced my my senses. So beyond that, as I say, I've got the red rose behind me. Also, I've picked the red rose, and I noticed that it has a sign just on it that says that it is the New Zealand Rose of the year in a particular category, which was the Sam McGreedy Perpetual Challenge. And I use the word perpetual quite a lot, and I use that in talking about my life. I say how I live perpetually in the light. I have perpetual energy, perpetual joy, perpetual happiness. So again, just a little bit of symbolism there. And one thing that I just thought of as I sat down and just did some test shots on this video was actually the colour of my hair. So my family name on my mother's side was Whitehead, and the reason that Whitehead obviously applies is because that is a line of people whose hair, as they grew a little bit older in the physical incarnation, their hair turned white. My mother always suggested that I may end up in that situation, and I think I'm definitely trending towards that. But it's very interesting when I think about that, because I talk about the white light a lot. So that symbolism there is just so strong for me. I mean, it's sort of like a destiny thing, having the white on the crown. And I talk about the crown as well. That's the crown chakra and the opening of the crown to this to the universe. So perhaps it was me being basically destined to be in this situation. So beyond that, I'll talk about just something else that happened this morning. I went for a walk around the area, and I went for a walk along the riverbank, and I ended up going up the hill, and I ended up in a cemetery. And I strolled around there and viewed it as a place where people have passed over from the physical realm to the realms that I believe exist. And I was just feeling so light there. I mean, I know it sounds sort of a little bit strange that one can be light in a cemetery, but I have this feeling that my understanding of death, we go to a much lighter place. And I'll bring that back into today's topic. So in prior videos and in my writings, I have outlined my experience with regards a ceremony that I undertook in July 2025 in Peru. Sapo experience. I won't go into all the technical aspects of that because I've done a video elsewhere and it's in my writing. But I went to a place for 5 minutes which effectively on reflection would be very akin to what one would describe as a near-death experience. And I can understand why it could be a near-death experience, and the chemicals that may have happened within inside of me that led me to have visuals, very distinct white light. So when I talk about having seen the light or being enlightened, and when I've ever heard in the past people saying that they've been enlightened or seen the light, I actually saw the light. So when I talk a lot about light and I talk about everything emanating from the source, the light, I have seen it. So we're talking about the Gnosis, the Gnostic aspect of my being. I have experienced these things that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about theory from my perspective. Now, tying it into today's subject, I have described that 5 minutes there was the most incredible 5 minutes of my life. So not only the visuals were magnificent, just marvelous, I mean there's no words for it. More so than that was the feelings and emotions that I experienced in that place. And it was pure love. It was love beyond human love. I've described it as human love times 10 and pure bliss. And when I returned from that place and awoke, and there were other participants who had either already undertaken their ceremony or were waiting, I had brought back from that place and overflowing from me an energy. And that energy I would describe as pure love. So I've brought back from the place that I had been to pure love. And I have described that place elsewhere. It was very clear to me that I had seen first level heaven. I had had a near-death experience. Just incredible. When I say first level, I say that on the basis that we're talking universal here, and heaven does not just have one dimension to it. And I got this distinct impression, just the feeling and the visuals, that there was just multi-dimensional aspects to heaven. And I've talked about sort of death in a prior video, and my understandings of things like reincarnation and everything like that, but we'll pull it back to today's topic. So when I'm going to talk about this topic of love, I'm talking about it from the perspective of those experiences. Love, prior to that, I have definitely experienced human love, relationships, and I described those kind of in detail. So I have gone into detail with regards my relationships in the past and what they meant to me on the human love basis, and of course the ending of relationships. You know, things are finite generally on the material physical plane. They are infinite in the universe. So I talk about that a lot. So just getting back to those relationships, I always had trouble letting go, and if the other person had finished a relationship, it was just quite devastating for me. And then in my last two that I describe, one was taken away from me from sort of a health perspective, and that's when I sort of went right off the rails. I really just couldn't handle that being ripped away from me. And then I had a further love relationship, which when it ended, which I knew it had to, was devastating. And that was I think my last great lesson in letting go. So I talk a lot about freedom. I talk a lot about we don't possess anything. Nothing is ours to possess. So that's a very short overview of like that human love experience that I've had. But in recent years, in particular on the spiritual journey that I'm talking about, I have experienced love in a totally different light, and again, just in a totally different light. When I saw the light and visited the source and experienced the illumination and the pure energy, the pure joy, the pure happiness, the purity of the place, of course, also there, one of the strongest emotions, as I've just outlined earlier on, was love. And I brought that back with me. And I talk a lot about when one has these experiences on the higher realms, one must integrate them into their day-to-day being. I spend 24 hours a day on the physical material plane, which we call Earth, I guess. And I'm also at the same time tuned into what I've experienced about the higher realms. and it's very important to balance that all out. So what am I saying here? I'm saying that I now have a very, very different perspective of love. Love is perpetual, and I guess the number of love, if we were to put a number on it, is infinite. So it's available out there for us all if we can. I'll use the term tune into it, and that might sound a little bit new agey, but I went from a situation in life where I was experienced what we would call perhaps normal human love between human beings, to a stage where I experienced the pure perpetual love that is available to us all. I talk a lot about perhaps the ways that we can get there, and as I say, there's no set formula. I talk a lot about the things that I've done in general terms, and what I'm talking about in all of the videos to date really are subject matters that deal with the very, very big perhaps questions or topics in life. And what I've found is that when I've been able to deal with those and experience them, and as I outline a lot, things are more obvious and easier to understand and more real in the higher realms. And the reason they're more real in the higher realms is because they are illuminated. It's pure illumination there for me, and I'm sure that many others have experienced it. I'll just do a little anecdote with regards to the light. So I experienced it through the Sapo experience, which is a medicine from the well, around the world, but I took it in the Amazon, and it took me to a place where I saw the, well, to date, the ultimate. I'm sure there's many levels of heaven that I have yet to see, but that's all for the future. And a few weeks ago I came across a video where a young American had experienced the light through a Sapo experience, and he also had travelled the world a lot in terms of spiritual journeys, and he knew of a spiritually enlightened adept in India, and he decided that he would introduce the spiritually enlightened adept in India, like his teacher, his spiritual teacher in India, to Sapo. And the teacher had never tried Sapo, so he took it to him, and the teacher inhaled it and went to a place. Interestingly enough, he just sat in a yogi position, so to speak, cross-legged, and where most people perhaps, because of the so overwhelming, perhaps lay back and close their eyes. Anyway, the spiritual adept opened his eyes and looked at this young American chap, and this guy thought that, well, this guy is going to have seen this thing that I've seen for 5 minutes, and it's just going to be the most amazing thing that he's ever seen. Anyway, the spiritual adept, or the spiritual teacher, was not showing obvious signs of overwhelmed, and the American said, well, did you see it? Did you see it? And you know, so excited that it introduced perhaps this new, really high realm to this teacher of his. And the teacher looked at him and basically said to him, yes, I saw it, and I experienced it for those 5 minutes that I was there, but that's what I experience every minute of the day. And the American sort of put everything in perspective to him, that there are people who through different means have reached these really high levels of enlightenment, and once one is at that level and it flows through you perpetually throughout the day, you will have love for everything and everyone. That's what I have, love for everything and everyone. Everyone has the divine in them, and I'll sum it up at that, because love is of course a very big subject, but I just wanted to touch on some of the things that I've had the fortune to experience, and they have definitely changed my perspective and outlook. So I'll thank you for your time. Thank you for joining me at the Rose Garden. I'll probably be moving on from this area next, and I'll bring you another video, And as always, I'll ask you to enjoy the journey. We will meet when we should, and namaste.